Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Wach. Jai Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani ki Jai, Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 24, Text 71. Yoga Desham Upasadya.
Yoga Desham Upasadya.
Yoga Desham Upasadya.
Yoga Desham Upasadya.
Dharayanto Muni Brataha.
Dharayanto Muni Brataha.
Dharayanto Muni Brataha.
Dharayanto Muni Brataha.
Samahitadya Sarva.
Samahitadya Sarva.
Samahitadya Sarva.
Samahitadya Sarva.
Etad abhyasatadritaha.
Etad abhyasatadritaha.
Etad abhyasatadritaha.
Etad abhyasatadritaha.
Yoga Desham Upasadya.
Yoga Desham Upasadya.
Dharayanto Muni Brataha.
Dharayanto Muni Brataha.
Samahitadya Sarva.
Samahitadya Sarva.
Etad abhyasatadritaha.
Etad abhyasatadritaha.
Please chant.
Yoga Desham Upasadya.
Yoga Desham Upasadya.
Dharayanto Muni Brataha. Dharayanto Muni Brataha. Samahitadya Sarva. Samahitadya Sarva. Etad abhyasatadritaha. Etad abhyasatadritaha. Yoga Desham Upasadya. Yoga Desham Upasadya. Dharayanto Muni Brataha. Dharayanto Muni Brataha. Samahitadya Sarva. Samahitadya Sarva. Etad abhyasatadritaha. Etad abhyasatadritaha.
Matachis or Matachi.
Yoga Desham Upasadya.
Yoga Desham Upasadya.
Dharayanto Muni Brataha.
Dharayanto Muni Brataha.
Samahitadya Sarva.
Samahitadya Sarva.
Etad abhyasatadritaha.
Etad abhyasatadritaha.
Word for word translation. Yoga Adesham.
Yoga Desham.
This instruction of Bhakti Yoga.
This instruction of Bhakti Yoga.
Upasadya.
Upasadya.
Constantly reading.
Constantly reading.
Dharayantaha.
Dharayantaha.
And taking within the heart.
Taking within the
Muni Brataha. Just take the vow of the great sages, the vow of silence. Samahita, always fixed in the mind. Diyaha, with intelligence. Sarve, all of you. Etat, this. Abhyasata, practice. Adritaha, with great reverence. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Jai. My dear princess, in the form of a prayer, I have delineated the yoga system of chanting the holy name. All of you should take this important stotra within your mind and promise to keep it in order to become great sages. By acting silently like a great sage and by giving attention and reverence, you should practice this method. Purport. In the Hatha Yoga system, one has to practice bodily exercises, dhyana, dharana, asana, meditation, etc. One also has to sit in one place in a particular posture and concentrate his gaze on the tip of the nose. There are so many rules and regulations for the Hatha Yoga system that it is practically impossible to perform it in this age. The alternative system of Bhakti Yoga is very easy, not only in this age, but in others as well. For this yoga system was advocated long ago by Lord Shiva when he advised the princes, the sons of Maharaj Prachinabarhishat. The Bhakti Yoga system is not newly introduced. For even 5,000 years ago, Lord Krishna recommended this Bhakti Yoga as the topmost yoga. As Krishna tells Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita 6:47, Yoginam api sarvesham matkatena antaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yomam sameyukta tamo mataha. Of all yogis, he who always abides in me with great faith, worshipping me in transcendental loving service, is most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. The topmost yogi is he who constantly thinks of Krishna within himself and chants the glories of the Lord. In other words, this system of Bhakti Yoga has been existing from time immemorial and is now continuing in this Krishna consciousness movement. The word Munibrataha is significant in this regard because those who are interested in advancing in spiritual life must be silent. Silence means talking only of Krishna Katha. This is the silence of Maharaj Ambarish. Savaimana Krishna Padara Vindayor Vachang Shri Vaikunta Gunanuvarnani. King Ambarish always fixed his mind on the lotus feet of the Lord and talked of him only. Bhagavatam 9.4.19. We should also take this opportunity in life to become as good as a great saint, simply by not talking unnecessarily with unwanted persons. We should either talk of Krishna or chant Hare Krishna undeviatingly. This is called Munibrata. The intelligence must be very sharp, samahita diyaha, and should always be acting in Krishna consciousness. The words etat abhyasa tadritaha indicate that if one takes these instructions from a spiritual master with great reverence, adrita, and practices them accordingly, he will find this Bhakti Yoga process to be very, very easy. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuru Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. My dear princess, in the form of a prayer, I have delineated the yoga system of chanting the holy name. All of you should take this important stotra within your minds and promise to keep it in order to become great sages. By acting silently like a great sage and by giving attention and reverence, you should practice this method. Hare Krishna. So, in this purport, Prabhupada speaks about, or he makes basically kind of a comparison between Hatha Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. So I was thinking we can speak about this, since yoga is very popular in today's world. When we were in Hungary on the farm, we took prasad in the Radhe resort, and there was a huge yoga group, mainly Matajis. They naturally more attracted to yoga. And also here in Switzerland there's so many yoga studios, and usually what they practice is Hatha Yoga. And so as followers of Srila Prabhupada we have the responsibility now to preach, and if we come across people who practice yoga, we should be able to explain what is the difference, what is yoga, what is the difference between the different yoga types, and what is actually the goal of yoga, these kind of questions. I was just, when I was in Hungary, also one friend of mine wrote to me. I know her from before, and she's also a yogi, and she once saw us chanting at the lake. And for many years she's practicing very serious yoga, and so I was asking. She said she's practicing Hatha Yoga, and then I realized I don't actually know much about it. So I made little research yesterday, just online, and maybe we can talk about it. I know Luki is also used to be or still is a yogi. I mean a Hatha yogi. So maybe you can also give your knowledge. So Hatha Yoga, first of all, Hatha Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga. What means yoga? If you go to the Oxford Dictionary, the definition of the word yoga is as follows: a Hindu spiritual and ascetic discipline, a part of which, including breath control, simple meditation, and the adoption of specific bodily postures, is widely practiced for health and relaxation. That's the definition of yoga in the dictionary. So basically, if you condense that definition, it's a discipline practiced for health and relaxation. Now, in the same Oxford Dictionary, they also give always the etymology. Etymology is the origin of the word, like what's the history of the word in a sense. And so here what they say, Sanskrit, literally union. That's the origin of the word. And actually, if we go into the Vedic scriptures, the word yoga is used in many different parts, not only in the Bhagavad Gita or in the spiritual scriptures, but even in more materialistic scriptures. I want to give you a few examples, and these examples should actually highlight or prove that the word yoga means union. Yoga, for example, is used in grammar, right? I was also studying Sanskrit. And how is yoga used there? For what? Yeah, that's one. Some yoga. If we had to find a word in our grammatical jargon, then what word would it be? What's a yoga? It's a conjunction. Konjunktion means a part of speech that connects words, phrases, etc. So, like, for example, Ajay is tired and hungry also. Also is a conjunction, I think. There's many different conjunctions, but it means to bring together two words or two phrases at the same time. So, union, connect. Yoga is also used in the Jyotish Shastra. Now we can turn to Astro. How is the word yoga used in astrology?
You asking me?
Yeah, you are a Jyotish student. It's a test now.
I'm going to fail terribly.
It's actually the same, also conjunction, but not conjunction of words, of course, but it's a conjunction of planets, not only planets, but celestial objects at the sky, stars, planets, or even what is it called? Rashi is called constellation, a constellation of stars. So, for example, you have a yoga in astrology which is called Chandra Mangal yoga. Chandra means moon and Mangal means Mars. So if the two are close to each other, then they unite, they connect, and so then it's a yoga. And in mathematics also it's used. What is yoga in mathematics? Plus. It literally means plus. This number yoga, this number equals. It's an addition. So we can clearly see just by the usage of the word yoga in the Vedic context where Sanskrit comes from, yoga means to bring two things together. Then, of course, what is, if we practice yoga like Bhakti Yoga or Hatha Yoga, what do we try to bring together? And of course, then you hear a lot of different theories. You have to bring the breath together, the upgoing and the downflowing breath, and all these things. And of course, in a way, as we saw before, yoga can be used in different contexts, but the ultimate yoga is to connect the soul with the whole. Wow, that was nice. To connect the soul with Krishna, because the soul is a part and parcel, and then it's supposed to be connected with God. And it's actually not such a problem to explain this to a neophyte, somebody who has no clue, if you know the philosophy. The problem comes if you don't know the Vedic philosophy of who you are, what this world is, how it is created. But if you study the Vedas, it becomes very clear that we are all a part of God, but we have forgotten, and now naturally what we have to do is to connect again. Yoga. very logical understanding. So that's the definition of yoga. Now, Hatha Yoga. Does anyone know what the word Hatha means? Ja, maar kennen we
Up and down.
What I found online, I was doing research, here in Wikipedia it says, the Sanskrit word Hatha literally means force, alluding to a system of physical techniques. So that's Hatha Yoga. And we know it's Hatha Yoga. We'll also speak about Ashtanga Yoga, but Hatha Yoga is very much focused on bodily exercises, breath, and I think they often speak about Kundalini also, how the Kundalini should go up. Prabhupada, in his scriptures, in the scriptures, in the purports, he often puts Hatha and Ashtanga together, not often maybe, but sometimes. And Ashtanga, what means Ashtanga? 8 limbs. Ashta 8 and Anga means limbs, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 limbs. And where is Ashtanga Yoga described? Like, that's how we actually should preach, that even the Ashtanga Yoga, it should be based on scripture. And where is Ashtanga Yoga described? Patanjali Yoga Sutra. And sorry, is also another. I saw that, but I didn't have the time to. Okay. Yeah, actually the Patanjali Yoga Sutra is not so technical. It is more. It's interesting because the yoga comes from the Vedic scriptures, and if we probably look at the scriptures which we have access to right now, but Bhagavad Gita actually speaks about yoga, no? In the 6th chapter, it speaks that one should sit down in a place and, like Prabhupada said, then fix, become calm and then fix the sight on the tip of the nose and meditate, etc. And then it speaks about samadhi. We'll also speak about this briefly. So Krishna, he explained, but then also Krishna explained, you should surrender to me, but then when he left, nobody surrendered to him or nobody knew how to do it. So then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came and Acharyas came to explain how to actually do it. In a similar way, I would say Patanjali came to explain more elaborately how to actually do Dhyana Yoga, by giving the Ashtanga Yoga process of following the 8 stages. And for me, I know Bhagavatam is not meant for speculation, but Hatha Yoga to me seems to focus very much of some of the limbs of the Ashtanga Yoga. And in this way... It
says the 4 first.
The 4 first? Okay. So basically, because these are in a way very important, because it lays the foundation, which we will see after. If you have the 4 first angas really together, then you can go deep in Ashtanga Yoga. So that's how it goes in the Vedic knowledge. It becomes more and more elaborated by the acharyas and the teachers, like this. So if we speak about Ashtanga Yoga, I think it would be very important that we know the 8 limbs. And Patanjali, in the Yoga Sutra, in text 229, he describes them. So let us go from the first to the last. What is the first one? Yama. What does yama mean? Yeah, regulation. I just downloaded some translation. It says external discipline. And after it describes, I will also read what it means. Then the second one, niyama. What means niyama? Internal discipline. Very good. Then number 3, Asana. I mean, that's probably the most people who practice yoga, they are working with asana. But we will see after that if they really were serious about yoga, they should actually practice the other limbs also and build it up like this. Then after asana comes which one? Pranayam, which means breath control. Prana, and again the same word yama, means regulation of the breath. Then the fifth, no, pratyahara, means
remove objects
withdrawal of the senses from the objects, yes. Then who said dharana? Means concentration. Then meditation and samadhi, which is trance. The Prabhupada describes as trance. Means samadhi. You are always fully absorbed, you are in trance about God, of course. So then Patanjali, he explains the 5 external disciplines belonging to yama, means external disciplines, yama, the 5 aspects of yama, in the 2nd chapter of text 30. Just, I'm not propagating Ashtanga yoga today. I just think it's very useful, and I often, when I spoke to yogis, I found, why do I not know these things clearly so I could... So the 5 yamas. Anyone knows? Number 1 is ahimsa, not harming. So just that point, many yogis are actually in the modern world are disqualified. If you eat meat, even actually if you don't offer you food, you're basically committing himsa. If you're wearing leather clothes and all these things, then you're disqualified. Then the 2nd one is satya, truthfulness. Asteya, not stealing. And now another one, brahmacharya, celibacy. How many yogis practice celibacy? I think almost nobody. Very few. And then the last one, aparigraha. Graha is a word of a planet. What means graha? Yes, it's not to take something. So apari, not to keep, to be, not being acquisitive, detached. So we can see the first stage of Ashtanga yoga. Many don't practice this, and of course we should be able to explain why it is important to take one step after the other. If you want to practice Ashtanga yoga, of course we don't recommend, because Srila Prabhupada and the Acharyas don't recommend, and Krishna himself doesn't recommend in this age. But it's like you build up slowly, and if you make a mistake in this part and you move to the next, it's like in mathematics, if you have a calculation mistake here, it will show here as well. And what do you think, why is it a problem later on? If you don't do these things, if you don't cultivate these disciplines properly. You cannot meditate. You cannot even sit down in a calm way, because these are subtle things which will influence your mind, and we know the mind and body connection is there, is strong. So then niyama, in the text 32, 2nd chapter, he describes 5 internal disciplines. Nobody knows that. I also didn't know. The first one, shocha, means cleanliness, purity. That would mean, to take bath after you pass stool and all these things. Again, not many do that. Santosha. Santosha, we know this word?
Satisfaction.
Yeah, contentment, satisfaction. Then tapa, austerity. Swadhyaya, yes, self-study. And Ishvara Pranidhanani. Of course, they translated it completely different. Ishvara, when the word Ishvara comes, it's crazy what they have to do in order to kind of fit it into their philosophy. Ishvara means God, Pranidhanani means surrendered to God. So again, these are things which are not practiced in the modern yoga system. So when one cultivates these, then one can go to the next one, which is asana, which most of the yogis are practicing. And what does Patanjali explain? What is the goal of doing all these asanas? Okay. Can you
Be able to focus the mind.
Okay, yes, but now asana is very much with the body, so what does he want? What does asana achieve ultimately?
Breathing. Being able
To sit. To sit for a long time. And he describes, it's quite interesting, postures of meditation should embody steadiness and ease. And some who do yoga, sometimes we have this experience when we also said, no, something unlocks, and you feel this steadiness, at the same time you feel very relaxed. Usually we are in between, we are either very tired, relaxed, or we are very tensed. And then he says, this occurs as all effort relaxes and coalescence arises, revealing that the body and the infinite universe are indivisible. So, if Ashtanga Yoga means asana, you practice these postures in order to sit in a lotus for hours and hours in a row. And then the next point comes pranayam. Pranayam is very famous. What is the goal of pranayam? In a more okay, that comes later also, I would say, because the stages after, pratya, what was it? Pratya, and that means basically it has to deal with the mind. But pranayama means you're regulating the breath. What exactly is to be achieved? What does Patanjali say?
Basically stop, that you don't have to inhale.
Yes. Basically, Ashtanga Yoga, pranayama means you stop breathing. Then you can move forward. And then we can see, who can do that. It's very difficult. We move key. Yeah, so, and of course somebody will read and say, this is kind of fictionary. But no, this is a system, and if you follow it, one can at one point stop breathing and then move on to actually withdraw the senses, meditate, focus, meditate, and then samadhi means to see the Lord in the heart. And Prabhupada, interestingly, I was doing some research on Vedabase, he quotes the last verse of the Yoga Sutras in the Bhagavad Gita, 6th chapter, in this verse, in the stage of profession called trance or samadhi. That's one verse there. And he speaks about it, I can read. By practice of yoga, one becomes gradually detached from material concepts. This is the primary characteristic of the yoga principle. So this means pratyaksha, no? Too. And after this, one becomes situated in trance or samadhi, which means that the yogi realizes the supersoul through transcendental mind and intelligence. Actually, this purport is so nice. Prabhupada explains everything. Without any of the misgivings of identifying the self with the super self. Yoga practice is more or less based on the principles of the Patanjali system. Some unauthorized commentators try to identify the individual soul with the super soul, and the monists think this to be liberation, but they do not understand the real purpose of the Patanjali system of yoga. There is an acceptance of transcendental pleasure in the Patanjali system, but the monists do not accept this transcendental pleasure out of fear of jeopardizing the theory of oneness. The duality of knowledge and knower is not accepted by the non-dualist. But in this verse, transcendental pleasure realized through transcendental senses is accepted. And this is corroborated by Patanjali Muni, the famous exponent of the yoga system. The great sage declares in his Yoga Sutras, and this is the last verse in the Yoga Sutra, Purushartha Shunyanam Gunanam Prati Prasavaha Kaivalyam Swarupa Pratishta Va Chitti Shaktir Iti. Many words we have heard now. Purushartha Shunyanam. What means?
Goal of human life is shunya.
Yeah, you're not worrying anymore about Artha Kama, Dharma, Artha Kama, Moksha. Not even Moksha. Moksha is Purushartha. Means most of them they aspire for Moksha, but Patanjali is saying no. You're completely free. Shunya. Shunyanam. Gunanam Prati Prasavaha. I don't know Prati. Of course, Prabhupada he explains, let's just read it. This Chitti Shakti, or internal potency, is transcendental. Purushartha means material religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and at the end, the attempt to become one with the Supreme. This oneness with the Supreme is called Kaivalyam by the monist. But according to Patanjali, this Kaivalyam is an internal or transcendental potency by which the living entity becomes aware of his constitutional position. In the words of Lord Chaitanya, this state of affairs is called Cheto Darpana Marjanam, or clearance of the impure mirror of the mind. This clearance is actually liberation, or Bhava Maha Davagni Nirvapanam. The theory of nirvana, now he explains what is nirvana. The theory of nirvana, also preliminary, corresponds with this principle. In the Bhagavatam, this is called Svarupena Vyavastiti. The Bhagavad Gita also confirms the situation in this verse. So, now we're speaking about yoga. Yoga means, I was listening to a lecture of Aindra Prabhu, and he speaks about yoga means plus. Plus means adding. You should add Krishna to your life. It means plus. It doesn't mean minus. It means plus. Our process means plus. We have to add Krishna. We are not renunciates, just taking austerity and putting things aside. No, we are adding Krishna to our lives. And nirvana, we also do the negative part. We have some austerity, but the main focus is yoga, to connect. And nirvana means the negative part. It's just one side, and it's not even the major side of the whole story. And Prabhupada, that's how he very nicely he explains that here. Nirvana, it corresponds with that principle that pratyahar, no, you completely detach yourself, and then all the problems are gone. But then you have to move on. And Prabhupada here, he explains, after nirvana, or material cessation, there is the manifestation of spiritual activities, or devotional service to the Lord, known as Krishna consciousness. In the words of the Bhagavatam, Svarupena Vyavastitihi. Prabhupada speaks about Svarupena because Patanjali himself uses the word Svarupa in the last verse. It means he speaks about Chit Shakti and Svarup, that there is some he doesn't speak about nothing. He speaks about some form, and he speaks about some energy. This is the real life of the living entity. Maya, or illusion, is the condition of spiritual life contaminated by material infection. Liberation from this material infection does not mean destruction of the original eternal position of the living entity. Patanjali also accepts this by his words, Kaivalyam Swarupa Pratishta, situated, Va Chitti Shaktir Iti. This Chitti Shakti, or transcendental pleasure, is real life. This is confirmed in the Vedanta Sutra as Ananda Mayo Vyashat. This natural transcendental pleasure is the ultimate goal of yoga and is easily achieved by execution of devotional service or Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga will be vividly described in the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So we can try to maybe even memorize this a bit in order to preach to yogis, hatha yogis, and to try to explain to them that it's a good process, but there is more. And then, so we spoke about yoga, we spoke about hatha yoga, and ashtanga yoga means it's a more mechanical process, how you connect, but then the goal is samadhi, means complete absorption. And even Krishna, he says, what is the goal of yoga? In the Bhagavad Gita, he says, Yoginam api sarvisham matkatena antaratmana Shradavan bhajate yomam same yukta tamo mataha. And so he's describing the best yogi is he who is always absorbed with his mind, thinking of Krishna, and with faith worships him. And Krishna says that's the best yogi. And he's using this word bhajate. And there is one verse from the Garuda Purana which actually describes bhakti. Anyone knows what bhakti really means? This is quoted in the Shuddha Bhakti Chintamani, this verse in the very beginning. The verse goes like this: Bhaj ityesha vaidatu sevayam parikirtitaha tasmat seva budhai prokta bhakti sadhana bhuyasi. The translation: the noun bhakti derives from the verbal dhatu, root bhaj. So the same word like Krishna uses in this Yoginam api sarvisham matkatena antaratmana Shadavan bhajate yomam. Meaning Krishna himself describes that, okay, there is many yogas, how you connect with me, but the best one is bhaj, bhakti. Therefore the wise say that bhakti, which refers to the best of all spiritual paths, means devotional service. And so it's all there in the scriptures, the explanation what yoga means, what is Ashtanga yoga, what is Bhakti yoga, and how there is a certain graduation. And we can explain this to all the people who already know yoga by using the knowledge of the scriptures and giving them the full understanding. And one consideration in this regard is also to speak about the different aspects of the Absolute. That there is Brahman, there is Paramatma, and there is Bhagavan. And bhajate, bhakti, is especially connected with the Bhagavan aspect. Service, seva, is connected with Bhagavan. The aspect of Paramatma is more connected with the aspect of, this is also there in I just remember in Shuddha Bhakti Chintamani, the aspect of meditation. Of meditation is also one, like if you spend time with a person, no? I can do something for the person, I can just focus on the person, and that's also nice, if somebody just pays attention to me. If you listen carefully, I feel, oh nice, they are listening. But then bhaj means to do something, to proactively do something. And of course that is also connected then with the ananda feature of the Supreme. Prabhupada gives the example, the sunlight, the sun planet, the sun god. And the sunlight is in a way not the full, it is connected but is not the full realization. But the sun god, when you see the sun god, you will realize the sun planet and the sunshine at the same time. And before Patanjali in the last verse he speaks about the Chit Shakti, which is basically the corresponding Shakti with the Paramatma, this knowledge, the all-pervading knowledge. And we as Bhakti yogis, we focus mainly on this Ananda. We want to give pleasure to the Lord. And like when you see the sun god, everything else will be inside as well. You cannot separate. So meaning if you realize Krishna by serving him, by giving him pleasure, by becoming connected with the Ananda potency, Srimati Radharani, then all the other realizations will also come. That's why it is the superior yoga. And Prabhupada, he says in the purport, just to finish that we should understand this, and we should therefore choose Bhakti Yoga as the path to reconnect with Krishna. And Bhakti Yoga is very simple. He says it is very, very easy. On the other hand, he says Hatha Yoga there are so many rules and regulations for the Hatha Yoga system that it is practically impossible to perform in this age. So on one hand he says Hatha Yoga is practically impossible, and on the other hand he says Bhakti Yoga is very, very easy. But he gives the qualification for somebody, how does it become very, very easy? Because I think if we make a survey with all the ISKCON devotees and we ask, so how is it going? Struggling, the regulative principles. And he says why here. If one takes these instructions from a spiritual master with great reverence and practices them accordingly, he will find this Bhakti Yoga process to be very, very easy. So if one has full faith in the words of the Guru, and what does the Guru give? In Shuddha Bhakti Chintamani also it's described the seed of Bhakti. What is it? How to practice. So if one takes that seed properly, meaning if you take a seed and you really put it nicely.
Pour with water.
Yes, and then you pour it with water.
And also remove bad plants.
Yes. Yeah, thank you so much. In this book it is described why is it that this bhakti seed does not grow properly, and he gives three reasons. One is if you don't take the seed properly, if you don't water properly, and if other creepers, you don't take care of the other creepers. So thank you. That's basically the instruction. We have to take the instructions from the spiritual master, which mean we have to primarily listen and chant, and then we have to eliminate all the other desires. And then if one does that with faith, Bhakti Yoga becomes very, very easy. And of course the essence of it is to constantly think about Krishna. And how is that done? Prabhupada said by chanting 24 hours Hare Krishna. And I, just as a last point, I was reading this book of Aindra Prabhu, and it was so inspiring how Aindra Prabhu is really an example. He took that seed with full faith, and he just understood what the spiritual master is saying is true. This Maha Mantra is giving all perfection, and he was just chanting. His whole life basically just endeavoring to chant, and the result is unimaginable. That he actually got some very high realization of who Krishna is and who he is. So I think we just remember now after this class that let us try to chant 24 hours and not think God is impossible, but if we make an endeavor, then the holy name is actually a person. Means Aindra Prabhu, he explained the holy name, it will descend, and if the holy name sees, oh, this person is very, very sincere, then we don't even have to mechanically do, but it will vibrate on our tongue. That's described by our acharyas. It's not a mechanical thing, but the holy name appears on our tongue and dances on our tongue. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Mahamantra Hare Krishna ki jai, Bhakti Yoga ki jai, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki. Hare Krishna.
Ну просто мне should we make the classes longer again?
Do bhajan for Shiva or Brahma. Bhajan is only used to Krishna.
Yeah.
And I think it was very interesting. You explained very detailed after Ashtanga Yoga, because Bhagavan Thakur explained in the introduction of the Hainan Sitani that the original process to get to achieve Bhakti Yoga is Ashtanga Yoga.
Really?
But this is the original process to get Bhakti Yoga. But because of our modification processes, is Hainan, yes, according with the test of the ages, yes, the Satyuga is the men's, the women's having the all qualities because of qualification, human qualification, they do Ashtanga. But after yes, as to Yajna, Archana, and now Hainan Sitani.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah.
Yes.
It's not a different goal, it's also Bhakti.
Yeah.
Darshan.
Because it's the same goal, but according to the qualification of human being, we have different kind of process. Do you know the pastime of Lord Chaitanya and Marigupta? Marigupta, before realizing who is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is a teacher, he's a doctor, yes, a Kaviraj, and he explains sometimes. Yeah, he explains sometimes about Ashtanga Yoga. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he peace in your plate, he explains, if you mix yoga with the bhakti, you eat exactly, you mix prasada with urine.